Sir, it's 3 o'clock, sir. I'll
Yeah.
start, sir. Yeah. Good afternoon, friends. We are very happy to meet you on the 51st episode of our Forefront of Future Frontiers, the medical webinar series. What we call as our labor of love. This is what we have been doing during this lockdown. Every week we take a theme, like almost every month or so we take a theme, and across the theme we try and explore different topics. So we've been doing what started as a small initiative on 25th of May last year, has now completed 50 episodes, and we are now in 51st episode. The theme for this time is on how technology has enabled healthcare. And today's episode, we will be exploring the role of robotics in surgery. And we have with us Dr. Biju. He is the head of the Department of Surgical Gastroenterology in JIPMER. And he is also a robotic surgeon who will be talking on this particular topic. On behalf of the Scientific Society of AVMC, myself, Dr. Mahalakshmi, Dean Health Professions Education, welcome you all for this program. I'd request our Dean Sir, Dr. Kotur, to give a few words of welcome to the speaker. And after that, Dr. Vishnu Bhatt Sir to introduce the speaker. Over to you, Dr. Kotur.
Thank you, Professor Mahalakshmi. Again, I'm privileged. I'm doing it for the 51st time to welcome the speakers. It's indeed a privilege. I'm honored to welcome today's speaker, Dr. Biju Pottakad, the professor and head of surgical gastroenterology. In fact, we have completed 51 episodes. I was just trying to recollect what is the contribution of JIPMER for the success of this IIIF webinar. We have about 20% of the speakers from JIPMER, more than 10 now, I think, if I'm not wrong. Anyway, we are very much thankful for all the speakers and the institute as well. And indeed, I'm very happy to welcome on behalf of our management and on behalf of our university today's resource person to speak on a very appropriate, in the sense, the one very much exciting and the recent one in the topics of the robotic surgery. Myself being an anesthetist, when I start realizing what are the advantages of the robotic surgery, of course, less anesthesia. I always quote it, compared to the similar surgery done in a non-robotic way, regular way, anesthesia will be a quite risky one. So it will contribute for quite a lot for not demands of the surgery or surgeon. We are, I'll say, they definitely reduced for obvious reasons. The incision is small, then the pain is less, and so all kinds of things. And many of the times, surgeons and anesthetists will fight, relaxation. That is not an issue here at all. So they do have the one, and surgeon will be quite comfortable. And it has got a history of only about 3.5 to 4 decades. The robotic surgery came into existence. And my personal opinion is, why it is not catching up much is because of the cost involved. I was trying to find out the cost is $2 million as it stands on today. That will be the main, probably, of course, our speaker who is an expert, he should be able to share his thoughts, but that is the main one, according to me. And of course, the other advantages are associated advantages of this less pain, less anesthesia, less blood loss, less infection. Those kind of advantages are also there. And one more greatest advantage is, of course, non-anesthetic advantage is the surgeon can perform this procedure in remote, so sitting somewhere. So the expertise can be shared. That is the main advantage. And of course, it's when this unmanned surgeries, we are sending unmanned vehicles to the next this was Jupiter or Moon, this kind of a thing. So these are some of the thoughts that come to my mind, and certainly we look forward to Dr. Biju to share his many of the first-hand experiences with this relatively new surgery for many of us. With these things, I welcome once again Dr. Biju, and welcome all the participants as well. And there are some eminent dignitaries in the participants in the audience. I acknowledge the presence of all of them. Over to you, Dr. Professor Vishnu Bhatt.
Good afternoon to everybody. on behalf of Chancellor of his Whereas of Vinayaka Mission Research Foundation, Dean, the HPE, and all faculty members and all of you. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Biju Kottakat, a young, energetic person. I always see him with full of activities. He has been in JIPMER for quite some time now. He has done his MBBS from Calicut Medical College and MS from Kerala Mahatma Gandhi University. Later, he did his MCH from SCPJ Lucknow. After completing MCH, he did fellowship in hepatopancreatic and biliary surgery. He is the first trained person in this field in our country. Later, he moved to Japan. He worked in the biliary surgery unit as a lecturer. Then he moved to Singapore. There he got a special training in hepatobiliary surgery. And after many trainings, he was back in SGPGA as a faculty member. Then finally, we attracted him to JIPMER, and it is nice that he joined JIPMER because he developed the Department of Surgical Gastroenterology in JIPMER. And he's a well-trained robotic surgeon that adds to the color. And as the Dean has said, robotics are costly and people trained in robotic surgery are few. But with that robotic surgery, they can do very complicated surgeries from remote place also. Person in USA or some other country also can operate in India. So it has got many advantages. He has been the professor and head of the Department of Surgical Gastroenterology in JIPMER. He has been editor-in-chief of the Journal of Nutrition Research, and he is in editorial board of several journals. And he has published many papers, more than 100 papers, and he has delivered more than 200 guest lectures in various conferences. And he is very efficient in organizing conferences, more than 50 conferences he has organized. And a rare thing to find, even for organizing one or two conferences, we struggle a lot. And he has conducted several research projects, more than 52, and among them around 14 are still going on. And he has been the Associate Dean Research in JIPMER, and presently is president of JIPMER Scientific Society. So he is a young man with a lot of experience in various fields and also in the specialist field of robotic surgery. I'm sure that he will enlighten all of us, although I have seen robotics and surgery from a distance. And it is nice to watch him. So thank you very much. Back to Dr. Mahalakshmi.
Thank you very much, sir, for that nice introduction to Dr. Biju. And before we move on to listening to today's talk, I have some few small announcements for the audience. We'd request all the audience to keep themselves muted so that the audio quality is good for everyone concerned. And as you see that this program is going live on YouTube, as well as it is being recorded, and this would be used for future academic purposes. So with these few words, I would request Dr. Biju to take the stage and deliver his talk. Over to you, Dr. Biju.
Thank you, Dr. Kotur, Dean, Dr. Vishnu Bhatt, Director of Medical Research, and Dr. Mahalakshmi, Dean of Health Professional Education, AVMC, for inviting me and giving this platform for a talk about robotic surgery. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. The slides are visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Please proceed.
So today we will be talking about robotics and its applications in surgery. So initially I will talk about what exactly is the robotic surgery meaning. What is the idea behind it? What are the principles? So robotics, anywhere, whether it is surgery or medicine or any other field, it's all about artificial intelligence. There is a term we need to learn when we talk about robotic surgery, is machine learning. So machine learning is we are teaching the machine about the human experience and asking the machine to behave in a particular way we want. That's what is about artificial intelligence and machine learning. So we are pre-learning, teaching the machine and asking the machine to behave with a programmed intelligence. So the machine will not have its own intelligence, but it will behave in a way with a programmed intelligence. So this is the principle of robotics. There are two types of robots. One is a totally independent robot. Something like you created a child and the child will behave the way you taught. So the typical example is Asimo robot made by Honda. And second is a controlled robot in real-time control. The typical example, the Mars exploration lander and robot. So these are the two different examples. One is a controlled in real time, other is not controlled, it is already programmed. So machines used in robotic surgery are totally dependent on human beings. These are not independent robot, and independent robots are not to be used in human being as per any of the approvals, including the FDA. So these machines include machine learning, as I described before. These machines works on algorithms. It's all very complicated physics and mathematical algorithm, and they have a framework to work. Within that framework only they will work. Beyond that, it will not move an inch, and it will also create some boundaries. So these frameworks works on visual and tactile feedback. So the visual feedback is generally obtained by the camera of the equipment, and sometimes tactile feedback by the instrument. So this pre-programmed algorithm will behave based upon the visual and tactile feedback. So you are teaching the machine on a preformed task, and the machine will behave based upon your taught algorithms. So what we have to understand is one of the fundamental principles in robotic surgery is the robot what we use is actually not a robot. It is actually a telemanipulator. So there is a computer there. There is a CPU, and based upon the artificial intelligence and the pre-taught algorithms, it will behave the way you want. So it's not an independent thing. Here, surgeon is the person who is performing the surgery. So this is something like a complicated machine doing a better task as per your continuous real-time second by second order. So this is actually not a robot as such. So there is no real-time artificial intelligence here. It needs a continuous control. And that is the foremost reason why surgeon is the master in the robotic surgery as well. So robotic surgery is basically a surgery performed or assisted with the use of a robotic machine or robotic platform. So that's why it cannot be an independent specialty of surgery as such. So there is a man-machine interface dominates the action. You might be sitting very near to the patient in the operating room with the robotic platform, but you cannot control it by hardware. Let us say you want to withdraw the some tissue like a laparoscopy. It is not possible because the robotic platform has created an interface based upon a computer algorithm, and you have to interfere that computer-based algorithm. Then only that particular physical action will happen in the patient body. Let us say you want to move a robotic arm. You have to give a certain commands or movements with your finger. Then only that commands will be transmitted to the computer. That computer will translate into the physical action. Then only that action is possible. So you are sitting near the patient, but that distance has no meaning apart from wired connection. For patient safety point of view, all these actions have a manual override. Meaning you can put a manual override and completely take over the surgery or action at any time. So the advantage is robotic surgery practically sort of a minimally invasive surgery. You can do it at a remote end and it can be unmanned, but this unmanned is not used for human use as of now. The history of robotic surgery is going back to 1980s, where a robot called Puma 560 was developed for a brain stereotactic surgery. And even now also a lot of robots are in development. Even our Chennai, the IIT Research Center, robots are under development. So now the technology as such is widely used. So basically it is what we normally do in real time is inside the operation theater, there is a control area and we are doing an on-site control with wired connection. It is not Wi-Fi connection. It is wired connection as of now. Tele-controlling is possible. And another advantage of this robotic platform is multiple persons can control the actions. It is not mandatory that only through one platform you can access it. You can access through multiple licensed platforms. So there are two types of robots. One is specific robot, like what we use in spine surgery. So these robots are designed for a particular action or a particular specialty. Non-specific robots are the robots commonly used like a Da Vinci system where you do mainly cavity surgery. So these robots are general robots where it will get accustomed to the type of surgery what you need. So initially the robotic surgery started with the not so standard robots. The first standard and safe robot came into the market is the Da Vinci system developed by a company called Intuitive from United States. And now there are at least 5 companies have marketed the robots in the market and the cost has drastically come down. Apart from Da Vinci, one more robot is already available in India and it is in clinical use. So what exactly is the robot means? So this is basically a combination of equipment and instruments. So in the operation theater, when you buy a robot, it essentially will have a surgeon's console, what you see number 1, the left side. Then there'll be a patient cart. The surgeon's console is the controlling area. It is the surgeon's interface. Patient cart is what is near the patient, and vision cart is what is like an endoscopy vision suit. This vision cart also houses the central processing unit of the entire system. So vision cart has a vision area, and below that energy devices as well as the central processing unit. So the patient cart is what is going to the patient. So unlike open or other surgery, you don't basically, if you are doing only a robotic on surgery on robotic platform, you basically just need one nurse. So this nurse or bedside assistant is basically introducing the instruments to the robotic arm, taking it out. So no assistant is actually required to perform a full robotic surgery. It's all surgeon control. Only surgeons can do anything through the instrument. So basically the assistant is a nurse, and residents also, apart from watching the surgery, they have not much a role to play. So this is the surgeon's console. Surgeon console essentially means you are sitting in a chair in the corner of the operation theater. You have some 2 eyes you can see in the screen, and some foot pedals are also there. Just below that eye, you can see some small ring where you hold your finger and operate. So this finger, your finger is moving based upon your commands, and once you move the finger, the robotic instrument which has been already introduced to the abdominal cavity of human body will start moving according to your finger movements. So it's a sophisticated movement. The movements will be augmented, your tremor will be tapered, and the crude movements will be translated into sophisticated movement. What you see on the right side of the screen is the energy sources. So it is connected to cautery and other energy sources through foot control. So into the patient cart, what happens? Patient cart will have a machine and also robotic, what we call robotic arms. there are 4 robotic arms. So these arms are the actual arms of a surgeon performing the surgery. So these arms will be loaded with preloaded with instruments. So these instruments will go through the laparoscopic port. You will put a port inside the abdomen, create pneumoperitoneum, and this arms will be attached to the port and instruments will go through the port inside the human body. And as I described before, based upon the finger commands in the surgeon's console, these instruments will start moving. So if you ask about which part is more of a robotic thing, it is the patient cart, which is the robotic thing. So this patient remaining 2 are more or less fixed position. The patient cart has to be fixed as per the type of surgery, and after discussing with the anesthesiologist, you have to position the patient cart beforehand. And on each surgery, the patient cart will position itself based upon command. You say upper abdomen surgery, it will get positioned as such. So there are 2 types of intuitive robots available in market, SI and XI. XI is a superior platform. You can do a little bit more complicated tasks with that, but basically, fundamentally, all these robots will have 4 arms. And within that 4 arms, one has to be dedicated to a camera, and you have 3 arms to perform surgery instead of 2 arms minus an assistant. So there is no assistant arm here. So basically what you do is 2 arms will be used for surgery, and the third arm will be used as an assistant arm, and the 4th arm for camera. So you can put a bedside, a patient side assistant near that arms. It can be a nurse, it can be a resident, and but it hardly matters. It needs some training, and that's all. So what it essentially does is the patient card, let us say patient card will have some arms. So these arms you have to load with the instruments. And it is electronically, once you load the instruments, the electronic and computer part of the robotic CPU will recognize the instruments, and it will give certain commands, and the instruments can be introduced into the human body through the robotic ports. So the port I already described, but the only thing what you have to note down is if any extra task is required, you have to put an additional laparoscopy port. And once you put additional laparoscopy port, these ports are not under the control of the robot. So you want to do suction, you want to do extra retraction. So it is just like another laparoscopy surgery. There should be one assistant, and this will be out of the purview of the robot. So how the robot, once you can see the picture that laparoscopy port going inside the abdomen, and there is these ports are connected with the arms of the robot. And the instruments are introduced through the arms, and it will enter inside the abdominal cavity or any other cavity. So 2 areas the robotic platform will control. One, the arms will be moving based upon the control. Second, instrument will also move. So these are 2 separate and but coordinated mechanisms. So instrument tip will also move, as well as the arm will also move. It is exactly like our human arm will move. You are holding an instrument, the instrument tip will move, as well as the robotic arm will move. So how the robot is actually controlling the arm movement and the instrument tip movement. So the camera has a lot of optical mechanisms, so it will receive the feedback. So if there is no camera, these instruments will not move. So it will receive feedbacks to the eye of the camera. There are very complicated algorithm which works, which will fix the positions of the arms and the instrument. So it will not allow movement beyond a certain range because it may harm the patient, it may injure the organ. So there is a hand-eye coordination working exactly like a human eye. So our human eye sees the operative field. We will not puncture unwanted areas with the instrument. So exactly the same way, there are a lot of defense mechanism which works in close coordination in order to prevent injury and also to optimize the movement. So there are a lot of an array of instruments available, but the instruments available are not up to the mark like an open surgery or laparoscopic surgery. The instruments are a little bit inferior. They're very hard instruments. It may injure the organs, and it can also accommodate the energy devices. The robotic instruments are separate instruments. These are not laparoscopic instruments. These instruments are, once it is placed in the robotic arm and connected with the wires, this will obey the commands from the CPU of the robot. No other ordinary instruments will not do it. So these are all already programmed and commandable instruments. When you come to the applications in robotic surgery, there are three very important differences the robotic surgery make. Why we have to look forward to the robotic surgery? One is the dexterity of the instrument tip. Let us say we are doing a minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery or endoscopy or whatever. The biggest problem currently the technology is facing is your hand has, let us say, 36 range of 36 degrees of freedom. Your instrument tip will have less than 10 degrees of freedom. That is the problem everywhere we are facing in surgery or medicine. So robotic instruments are designed in such a way that it practically mimics all the range of movements the human wrist and fingers have. So that is very specific to robotic surgery compared to minimally invasive surgery and laparoscopy or motorized laparoscopy as well. Second advantage, it has a very good 3D vision. So without 3D vision, robotic platform will not work, and it is also required for feedback. So this 3D vision is superior compared to any other platform. And it also, the third advantage is, if you identify a narrow space for surgery, let us say hysterectomy or pelvis, within that framework, it will allow you to do a lot of fine movements because you have very 36 degrees of freedom in a constrained space compared to laparoscopy. So in a narrow space, it will give a significant degree of freedom of movements. So the meaning of robotic surgery in great sense is related to its degree of freedom, the unlimited wrist, elbow and shoulder movements. To make this much degree of freedom, laparoscopy instrument will not allow, and the cavity space is not enough. So people compare, argue, debate about 3D laparoscopy, 4K vision, robotic surgery. So basically what we have to understand is the technological platform in vision and 3D is continue to evolve and improve. All these technologies go in a different timelines and different wavelengths. All this can be incorporated into artificial intelligence platform and robotic surgery. And this, let us say 4K vision has come, it is going to be part of robotic surgery in future. So all these vision improvement technologies are going to be incorporated in robotic platform in future. So these are not mutually competitive technologies, although in marketing level, there may be some perceived competition as such. Coming to the disadvantages of robotic surgery, the main disadvantage is cost. Okay, the cost is so enormous, poor people cannot afford, all the institutions cannot buy it because it's not cost effective as such. And the machineries involved and the connection, docking is the connection with the patient, it takes some time, less option of instruments, sometimes need for extra port. And for multi-quadrant operation, let us say you want to remove the total collector, the entire colon has to be removed. You have to position in robot in multiple positions, it is becoming difficult. So very narrow fixed space, it is good, but very broad and multi-quadrant surgery, it is not so good. There, laparoscopy has more advantages. Now, almost all areas robotic surgery has infiltrated. Started with urology, gastroenterology surgery, general surgery, pediatric surgery, even cardiothoracic surgery. All, whether it is indicated or non-indicated, surgeons try to put their good effort with the robots in all fields of surgery, and it is going to increase only. But it classically, if you take all the literature publications regarding robotic surgery, these are highly useful in intermediate level of difficulty operation. Not so difficult operation, but not very minor operation. Minor operation, because of the cost, it will not give you advantages. Whereas very complicated operations, because of the time consuming and the instruments and needed, there also will not get the window of advantage. So window of advantage is there for intermediate level of surgeries, classically prostatectomy, nephrectomy, rectal resections, and an array of similar surgeries. Coming to the cost and the industry, actually the role of industry, we have to look in two ways. One in a positive way, one in a negative way. We should thank the industry that they have introduced the technology. Many engineers over decades have spent an enormous amount of time and their effort to bring this technology possible. But at the same time, because of lot of patent restrictions, this technology are not widely available to all the manufacturers across the world. So what manufacturers ending up is, they are designing their own platform and coming out with different technologies and making new patents, getting new licenses and marketing. So this is becoming some sort of a 5-year delay in each platform. It is actually increasing the cost. So from the beginning itself, the companies used to promote less. The pressure from the medical fraternity or surgical community, science is also getting promoted more and more. For example, if you see the diagram there, all the numbers probably denote patent. So there are more than 1,000 patents related to even one machine. So you can see how the another company, how much difficulty they have to go through this circumvent all this. And insurance packages do not cover this robotic surgery because of the cost. And how the hospitals do it, they put a ceiling. For example, some hospitals do the same ceiling for laparoscopy as well as robotic surgery in the beginning. Then once it picks up, the cost will be. So any hospital who is which is trying to introduce robotic surgery, please do not think that within 5 years you will be able to recover the cost of the machine. It is not going to work out that way. Regarding the training of robotic surgery, there are challenges in robotic surgery training compared to conventional or laparoscopy training, because we are dealing with a very complex machine. High skills are involved, and there will be physiological and psychological stress, and there is no lack of regulation in the robotic surgery training as such. The regulations are basically made by the companies themselves, adopted by professional bodies. So professional bodies are not coming out with any guideline as of now, except the recent 2 years, changes in the last 2 years. So when you talk about the robotic surgery training, we have to understand the concept what I have described before, and we have to understand the machine and understand the instruments, and you should also know troubleshooting and patient safety. Why? Because the way the robotic platform works, it also has an unsafe environment associated with that, because surgeon is dissociated from the patient by computer interface. So we have to be extremely careful about the training, about the certification and the experience of the surgeon. So patient safety is very important, because in unsafe events, reportable event happen, this will keep on add on to the literature, it will get published, it will be monitored, and finally, because of our errors, a good science and a good technology may take a backseat. So it has to be a gradual, slow process and a monitored process. So robotic training should be given by trained surgeons. So as I mentioned before, robotic surgery as such is not a special. You might have heard several legal suits, surgeons performing hysterectomy without the presence of gynecologist. All this can apply in this also. You have to be area or subject expertise to do a robot. So this is another tool for the surgeon. And advanced laparoscopy skill is not required. So you can, there are especially in United States, many people who do not perform complicated laparoscopy surgery, they can be directly converted from open surgery to robotic surgery. So it is possible, because you will be more, the people who are more experienced with open surgeries can convert themselves to robotic surgeons very quickly. learning curve is shorter than laparoscopy, and the commitment to use regularly. Occasionally doing robotic surgery will not add to your expertise, because here there are a lot of machine related skills are involved. So in the robotic surgery training, there is observation, then there is case assisting, acquisition of basic skills in dry and animal lab, and console training under supervision, and then only we'll go to independent practice. So there is a slow and gradual process, but slow doesn't mean the timeline. It is in the skill line. It can be, entire thing can be finished in 1 month also. Especially the patient safety is what we are keeping in the mind. So broadly speaking, the robotic surgery skills are classified into basic and a specific procedural skill. Basic skill is about manipulation of the machine, understanding the machine, understand the behavior of the robotic arms, the instruments. Specific procedural tasks are related to, let us say we want to do a rectal resection or a hysterectomy. These procedural tasks are over-added and taught separately. So there are two types of tasks which needs to be learned in the robotic surgery training. So who is the resource person in the robotic surgery? Robotic surgery trainer need not be a very experienced surgeon or robotic surgeon. All training, probably all centers starts with a veterinary surgeon who teach you the robotic surgery first, because you are doing in wet lab and animals. And then you are coming to human interface, then the experienced robotic surgeon will teach you other things, but it's a continuous process. Every day, every surgery you learn. The nurse who works with you for 1 year might have different tips and points to remind you in between surgery. So listen to all of them, because this is not a routine surgery and it needs a lot of mechanical and a computer interface. And the training, it is not the surgeon only need to be trained. The resident also need to be trained. Your nurses need to be trained. Technician need to be trained. And the entire team inside the operation theater need to be trained. Then only the cost implication will come down. For example, if you use one instrument extra, let us say another 50,000, if you use it unwantedly, that instrument is lost and another 50,000 is gone. You have a coordinated movement, you can reduce a significant amount of time in surgery. So it's a rhythm movement. The coordinated movement will save you a lot in terms of cost as well as the patient safety. So entire team has to be trained. So basics training is basically to apply to all specialties. So irrespective of the specialty, most of the basic trainings are same, whether it is gynecology, general surgery, urology. So in the Intuitive is a company which markets the Da Vinci robotic machine. So they have a training model. This model is their own company proprietary model, but it's not completely accepted by professional bodies. There is a verification of your commitment for robotic surgery. There's a theory exam. There is a hands-on training. Then there is an animal interface training. Then first case under supervision and doing self. So please remember that this training is applicable to qualified surgeon who has years of experience in performing the same surgery either in open platform or laparoscopic platform. It is not that immediately after your MS or MD training you can come to robotic surgery, go through this module and start performing. It is not. Robotic surgery platforms are not the platforms where you can learn surgery as such. It is not the accepted model of training. You learn the surgery, you get experience in other type of surgeries, then you convert yourself to robotic technology. This is the method Intuitive Surgicals also advocating. In advanced training also, urology, it is not available or it is not needed. There is GI, oncology and ENT specific modules are available. This is for specialty surgeon who want to perform that area very specifically. So it is a little bit more complicated algorithms in advanced training. But what it really matters is, as I told before, you're already an experienced surgeon. You know how to do open surgery better. You know laparoscopic, you have laparoscopic skills. Then it is the basic training which actually matters. And you are familiar with the robot. You can do surgeries better in robotic platform. So Da Vinci gives, after all your training, the company gives a training passport. And when you have this license, please remember that these machines are patented. If you have the license, you can start performing surgery in the machine. And whether it is said or not said, the company is monitoring you through the machine, through the electronic interface. I'm not sure whether data is served outside the country or your center or not. That I'm not sure, but your exercises, your surgeries you are performing, your tasks, its metrics are actually stored in the CPU of the system. So the company wanted to ensure that your the surgeon is behaving sensibly with the machine. So there are now associations also slowly started accepting the intuitive model, and they created their own models also for robotic surgery training. But when you, let us say an experienced surgeon, you already finished the basic training, does not want to undergo the complicated advanced training. The advanced training is basically available abroad, not in India. So he has another alternate pathway. So he has to assist 20 cases, then perform 20 cases, and then submitting to report. They will go through the credential and certify the surgeon as an advanced robotic surgeon. Then he can start performing the complex robotic surgery also. But in very good institutes where institutes are already satisfied with the performance of the surgeon, they can also individually certify the surgeon as eligible to do robotic surgery. There is also a training platform for residents also. This is also supposed, but the problem is the resident has to be committed for that from the beginning. It is not that just you are just going for a certification and showing somewhere and pressurizing the hospital authorities to buy the machine. That is not the way. He has to be committed for the robotic surgery work in the future. So in the intuitive surgery, when you buy robot, you can also have the option to buy two surgeon consoles. So the second surgeon console will also act as a surgeon console if two surgeons, let us say you want to operate, partly your assistant want to operate, that's also fine. At the same time, it will also act as a simulator. So when there is no patient, this console can act as a simulator because this console has inbuilt training mechanisms. It has platform, it has software models where you can do surgeries within the surgeon's console. So this second console will give you the liberty to do training to residents and other surgeons as well. So manufacturer gives training, institutions and departments can also give training. It can be collaboration of both. Successful models are where institution and manufacturer can collaborate, and there are online platforms available. Now associations and institutes also coming out with a robotic platform. This is one of the simulation system. This is which is called the ROSE simulated surgical system. This is not from Intuitive. This is from another company. But this also gives the basic training in robotic surgery. So we are lucky in JIPMER to have this first ROSE trainer in the entire country installed. So this is being used by residents of various specialties. So this is a very useful tool to learn the familiarity with the robotics and basic robotic training. So the Endoscopic and Surgical Association started accrediting the robotic surgery training as a enhancement to the existing surgical training, and the trainees can also avail this opportunity in future. But the main thing is the robotic surgery is, we have to remember that it is one of the options of surgery. There is no point in pressurizing a poor patient to undergo robotic surgery. It doesn't add that much advantage to that poor man. And it has demonstrated equivalence in some surgeries, but it never demonstrated. If you take a US model of auditing the robotic surgery outcomes, because of the probably because of the cost and other concern, it has never demonstrated a superiority. And as with any technology, which is very well applicable to robotic surgery as well, the adverse events are underreported. This underreporting is not good practice, but it is continues to be underreported, especially in conference and all that. If you go, You will be able to see beautiful videos and presentations, but at the same time, we need the data, otherwise we will not be transparent. And we have to remember that the surgeon is still the master, even in the era of robotic surgery. Surgeon is still the master, and robot is continuing to be the slave of the master. This is basically applicable to keep all the patient safety aspect in our day-to-day practice. And as I said, professional association, specifically robotic surgery is coming up, which is good. We have now a scientific association allowing paper presentations and other abstract presentations. And just the last minute of this presentation, I wanted to just apprise you what is going to happen in robotic surgery in future. So it is here to stay. We cannot shy away from this. We cannot neglect it. We cannot keep on discussing the randomized trials in robotic surgery. What is going to stay is not the robot. What is going to stay is the application of artificial intelligence based surgery. And image guided surgery is going to stay here. You are pre-feeding the CT guided images. The robotic arms will go and it's going to perform the surgery in a pre-planned CT image guided platform. Integration with artificial intelligence and computer if possible. And what we are seeing, the present very complex machine which occupies the entire operation theater with the 2-3 surgeons console and patient console. This will have a mostly some 1 decade or 2 decade life expectancy. We are going to come out with the engineers are going to come out with the small machines. Okay, so this is going to be the future of robot. So you can see the this is developed in Singapore. This is actually an enlarged magnified endoscope. This is a robotic endoscopic platform. You can see how many wires going there, and this has a facility for glue injection for bleeding. It has a facility for biopsy. So these are all robotic endoscopy is going to take over the endoscopy maybe another 20 to 25. So this is going to come in a big way. And basically the advances in artificial intelligence will help us from the current understanding of robot assisted. What we are doing is the robot assisted surgery. From that, next progression is to assisted robot surgery. There will be a robot to perform surgery. We are assisting the robot. And then next generation will be robot performing the surgery completely based upon a pre-command without any human interface. And the fourth phase will be a totally remote. Let us say you want to do a surgery in a very remote area. You leave a robot there and come back and command the robot to do a cholecystectomy, hysterectomy, and forget about it. These are the generations of robot going to come in future. And thank you once again for the Dean and the Director of Medical Research and Dean of Health and Professional Education, AVMC, for inviting me for this talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Biju. That was indeed a nice talk about surgery for the future. And I'm very glad that we had quite a few students and postgraduate residents in the audience. They could hear this, and this is what they will be performing 20 years from now. And that was, I think, very nicely brought out. And the other thing which came out very nicely in your presentation is it's the surgeon who matters. It's the man behind the machine who matters rather than the machine. So that is was very nice. I have some few questions for myself as well as a few questions in the chat box. Let's start with what Dr. Vishnu Bhatt has asked. Sir is asking whether you can use the same instruments for all different types of surgeries, same machine for different operations, or do you need to, how do you sterilize equipments, or is it use and throw kind of equipment? What is the thing?
Yeah, I'll tell you the ideal and what is practice. Ideal is no instrument need to be used and thrown. But as you know very well, that the companies do not give us that liberty. The moment you put the instrument in the machine, your license starts counting. So you have to buy the some instruments are permanent. You can use it multiple times. Some instruments are not. So that is the point. Second thing is it can be sterilized by a normal method, but the same instrument you can use for any type of surgery. Let us say hysterectomy. and cholecystectomy. It's almost the same instruments which are being used. Why it is like that? Because in the robotic platform, you don't have too many options of instrument, because each instrument is something like a electronic gun. It has to undergo a lot of command process. So let us say you have 10 to 12 types of robotic instruments. This can be used for multiple types of surgeries. It is possible. Let us say you are hook, that same hook can be used for any type of surgery. Basically, it's like a laparoscopy, minimally invasive surgery.
Thank you. There's one more question, like since it is minimally invasive, is the blood loss less? The post-operative complications, pain and other things are much less compared to laparoscopic surgery. Let's say you do a robotic cholecystectomy or robotic hysterectomy versus a laparoscopic procedure for the same surgery. So how does it perform with regard to patient experience after surgery?
Yes, patient, one of the immediate thing to recognize a robot is it will give a very excellent vision. Okay, whatever it is described in the Gray's Anatomy, even the small branches, you will start seeing it. Suddenly, when you start performing robotic surgery, you will identify what are these extra layers coming, which I have not used for last 15 years. What are the new structures coming up? Which is this artery branch? Because you are seeing it, because of the magnification and clarity, some of the small structure you are seeing it the first time. Second, because of the excellent energy, what happens is in energy companies, when they discover a new platform, the affordable robotic companies buy that and seal that technology for 3 years and incorporate in the robot. So most of the vision and energy advances first gets incorporated in the robot, then only we'll get that as a normal cautery. Because of that, robots have a superior technology. So because of the good cautery and coagulation, blood loss is equivalent or less. At the same time, you will be able to do a better surgery because the vision is far better.
Thank you for taking this. Actually, when we are looking at risks and rewards, that's what we look at for any of the surgical procedures. So I came across this Joint Commission report, which looked at the safety of robotic surgery. And then they have come up with what are the common issues or concerns when we are talking about robotic surgery. One is device malfunction. The second one is the experience and expertise of the surgeons, the learning curve which needs for the surgery people, and also the entire technical team. It's not just one man show. And the third issue, which is also the other than the cost, is that movement latency. Earlier in the original days when we started training with laparoscopy, also we had that, like what we perform and what gets translated into the body. That movement latency is also a major issue. So how do we address these technical issues when we are trying to train a lot of residents in these procedures? Because as you said, quite a few of them are also coming and training. So what mechanisms have been put in place to ensure that when you fall from that learning curve, it is not a very steep fall?
Yeah, so basically regarding the Joint Commission report also, we have to thoroughly be aware about the manual overrides of the machine. Let us say you are performing a upper abdominal surgery. The robotic arms will be lying or just above the chest level. Let us say the patient has a sudden cardiac arrest. How will you do CPR? So you should know even the anesthetists know how to make the things just suddenly exposed, how the arm should move immediately out of the operator. So this manual overriding, because of the safety, everybody should learn. That is point number one. Because anytime it can happen, you want to convert. Let us say you are injured the aorta or inferior vena cava. Okay, you cannot go there and suddenly pull out. It will not come like that. You should know within 10 seconds how to get rid of this out of the field. This is very important. Second thing is, when you train somebody, first is commitment has to be there. Second, he already should have been a trained surgeon. Third, always train them in a safe and scientific environment. There is no point. Let us say company is going to put a training center somewhere. He underwent a 1-day training, 2-day training. suddenly come back and you tell him to perform the robotic surgery and claim that we are done, that will not work here. He has to undergo the theory, he has to undergo the online platform. He should have already learned these basics of surgery later, and he should spend enough time with the machine. The learning of the machine and the concept is very important. That can be done at a resident level, at any level. Even if you are a professor, you can learn it. So every institute should come out with, although the companies come out with their own training modules, institute should really look into that and adapt into their own environment, whether it is bypassing or adding on. It is better that after seeing almost going through the reports, and it is better that institute put more restrictions in the training than what company is asking. That may be a better way to do it.
Yeah, thank you. How important do you think is debriefing in the entire process, even if somebody comes as an observation? You talked about hierarchy of learning. So I come and observe, then I assess, then I do under supervision, then I do that. So how important is debriefing in the entire process, and what's your mechanism to do that?
Yeah, one of the advantages of robotic platform, you can record the surgeries in real time. Just put a pen drive and it will allow the output to come out. So after finishing the surgery, you replay the video once again. That is one. Second, the robot itself, its CPU and its memory mechanism will give you a real output of what are the mistakes you have done. This is very much important in simulation training. Simulator will give you the metrics. So the same robotic machine as a simulator, the ROSE simulator also has a simulator. So it will give you the metrics of how much unwanted movement happened, how much unsafe steps you have performed. All this it will give you. And along with the video, and always your mentor, if you stand by, a debriefing session is required. I recommend at least in the initial 10 cases, it is required.
Thank you for taking this. I'm sure our dean has some questions for you. I think in the beginning of the talk itself, he was asking about the cost of robotic surgery. Sir, would you like to take that now, sir? Dr. Kotur?
Yeah, Professor Biju, being an anesthetist, many times what I have seen, especially in the oncology surgeries, many times the surgeons after anesthetizing, they open it and now it is not operable. Something like that. That things also we have seen many a times. Now my question is, suppose the same patient would have been attempted with a robotic surgery, this inoperable would have become operable, or something of that kind can be possible.
Yeah, one of the problem with the robotic surgery, you do not have tactile feedback. Okay, you will not be able to have the feeling. So that tactile feedback, that the human interface of touch is lacking in robotic surgery. So what really going to happen is, see, in oncology, you have to put a little bit of different perspective altogether. Okay, this oncology, it's a cancer and each an extreme fine. So once you're very clear about resectability, it is okay for a robotic surgery. But if you're a little bit unsure about the resectability, we have to remember that for that particular patient, that is the only chance of survival. Okay, here, the robotic platform is not mandatory for that surgery. So if you're sure that even 5% you are unsure that, 5% extra you are sure that the same task can be done by laparoscopy or open surgery, I advise to do that. Because these are some life-saving procedures, the approach sometimes doesn't matter. It's the outcome which matters. At the same time, you have a standard surgeries. You know that this is, that's why in the United States, if you go to the strict guidelines, advanced stages of cancer, robotic surgery is not recommended even now. It's only in the early stages of cancer it is recommended. So you are clear about the plane, not much adjacent infiltration. You will not make an R0 resection compromise. R0 means the negative margin. You will not make it compromise. You will not cause too much tumor spill. It's fine. But at the same time, any small doubt, we have to remember that this is only one method of surgery. That patient has the second option of open surgery or laparoscopic surgery. And this has to be told to better to tell the patient in advance.
So another one is a little layman's question you might think, are there any robotic surgeries wherein any intraocular manifestations like, retinal surgery, robotic going inside and fixing the detached retina, something of that kind? Is it heard of? I don't know.
Yeah, so it's basically device implantation is a specific area of robotic surgery, and it has a significant advantages. Why? I will tell you what is the advantage. For example, last year I visited the research lab in IIT Chennai. So they are developing a spinal robot. So if you let us say there is a fracture of the spine, let us say retina or some lens has to be placed, the precision of that work will be much more with the artificial intelligence platform. Why? Because let us say you are doing a CT scan of the spine, or let us say MRI. You are feeding that, and you know where the implant has to be placed and what is the alignment, exact alignment required. So that completely human interfaces may not be able to exactly measure that alignment and put it properly. Whereas an artificial intelligence robotic platform will be much more capable to do that precision task, because we are going to 99 plus terms of accuracy, whereas in human interface we are still with a 90 to 95 accuracy. So that level of integration of artificial intelligence will definitely give advantage for robotic platform for this fixed task. It should not be a very complex task. It should be a very simple, fixed, precise task.
So then nobody has attempted this ophthalmic surgery, like retinal surgery, something like that.
No, I'm not aware. I'm not aware about it.
Yeah, yeah. And lastly, the question which I was trying to answer in my put in my beginning, that's the cost presently here in India. I said it's about $2 million, and it will be the same, with the same Da Vinci company. Where all it is available, this robotic surgery in India?
Yeah, robotic, actually the machines are already in place for more than 40 machines are there. I think it is much more than now. I don't have the recent study, but definitely more than 40 machines. The point is now let us say up to last year, it was the monopoly of Intuitive Surgicals. Okay, so the cost, let us say the advanced platforms will go anything beyond 16 to 18 crores. Okay, for installation, and each instrument we are using, we have to, that instruments are costly. That is how the companies gets the money. But now the new robotic platforms has definitely brought down the cost to less than 10 lakhs. And I'm very sure that by, let us say 2024, the cost of robotic platform will drop down below 6 crore. So now the robotic platform, non-intuitive robotic platforms are available for less than 10 crore, but probably by 2024, it will drop down below 6 crore. One more advantage with the other competitive companies are doing is they are allowing to reuse the instruments in an extensive way. So that will bring down the individual cost of the surgery. That is a very, robotic surgeons can understand that is one of the very major breakthrough. For example, you buy the machine for 10 crore. Each surgery you end up in paying the 2.5 to 3 lakhs. It is not a sustainable model. So once you buy a set of instruments, then you can do enough number of surgeries with the instrument. That is the model we are every surgeon, which is going to come by 2024 definitely. Probably by next year, the other companies, Medtronic and Johnson & Johnson, will market their machine. So with that, the huge advantage, the Intuitive Surgical itself will start reducing the cost. So the cost is basically, it's a market-driven strategy, not based upon any expenses.
Thank you. No, that means a little costlier than an MRI machine now. It should be there in a couple of years. And I'm sure with this, the robotic surgery will be the one which 3,000 years back, Sushruta describes the characteristics of a surgeon: a hand who doesn't shake, who doesn't have any tremors, who doesn't perspire. I remember vaguely that he has described in his Sushruta Samhita the qualities of a surgeon. So probably with this robotic surgery will be go nearer to that, or whether he dreamt that time. Anyway, it was wonderful.
Now almost all the operation theater complex will have one laparoscopic machine. Like that, probably in another, I'm reasonably sure that all the operation theater complex will have some form of robot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Dr. Biju, that example was very much reminding of how disruption actually can come into the market, right? When Apple, the first MacBook came, it was such an exclusive thing that the computers, home computers, desktops were so costly. But when Microsoft started making this available to everybody, then every Tom, Dick, and Harry started having this. So that is what disruption in this means in real life, and that what you said makes absolute sense. Actually, I have a very interesting question from one of the first MBBS students recently joined the course. He wants to know about 3D hologramic surgery. Probably seen a lot of these science fiction movies, I think, and diagnosis. Is it possible in future? That is from Ravi Kumar, first MBBS student.
Yeah, it is possible. Basically, I'll tell you what is the basics of all these technologies. One, access. So let us say you want to do a colonoscopy or anywhere. First, you need a minimal access without disturbing or cutting the body. So that is possible with the mechanics. Okay. Then when you go inside, let us say capsule endoscopy, how will we do? We just swallow the capsule, and that capsule will emit some signals, and it has a receiver camera. So all these equipments, what we use, copier, whatever access equipments, whether it is laparoscopy, it is going to be smart. It is going to be attached with the smart tips in future. So this smart tips will have receiver. It will emit information. We are receiving signals even from Mars. Okay, so there is no problem in receiving signals with a 1 meter distance from the colon or also. It is going to come. And second, add on to that, you will be able to manipulate the tip of all these instruments or access areas from outside, which are already in the human body. You can manipulate from outside. Let us say you're doing endoscopy, pushing scope to that. Instead of that, you imagine that you're swallowing a capsule, and the capsule is getting manipulated and moved from outside. It is quite possible. Now, but because of the parallel advancement in imaging technology and all, what has definitely happened is the necessity of that access is also going to come down. For example, you have one human body. You want to see all the parts of the human body inside and outside. Let us say you want to do a cancer of the stomach. You want to see the cancer of the stomach. These stomach images are through the artificial, you are acquiring the stomach images by CT. Through the artificial intelligence platform, you are magnifying, you are analyzing the character of the tumor. That's what I am going to, what I was emphasizing is, even I am afraid that the histopathology also may disappear in future, because the tissue and cell features will be quite evident because of the external acquisition of the images. So it is going to come in a very big way. The future era is going to be non-interfering with the human body, acquire the images, interpret the images, and nothing you should see under the microscope. This is going to be the future.
Yeah, thank you. That actually that answer was reminding me of what they say in the Avengers Endgame movie. All that we wanted to learn about time travel, we learned from movies. So like this only we are going to learn technology. I hope Ravi Kumar sir has answered your question. He has put a message saying thank you, sir. Okay. So there's only one more question which is left, and we'll take that as the last question for the day, even though this interaction is very enjoyable, but we are coming to the end of the session. What do you think is going to be the issues in adaptation of robotic surgery? One, you said about the cost and the monopoly in the market by a particular system. And Dr. Kalsad, who is a senior professor in medicine, also wants to know, is it going to replace laparoscopic surgery in future? So that would be our last question.
Yeah, so it's basically the one way of doing the minimally invasive surgery. Okay, so robotic surgery, the difference is the human interface is taken over by the machine interface. So there are already research in the area where you have smart lab. What we want is we want a long arm, small arm reaching the inside the body and doing the procedure, which is not available. That's why all these long instruments are coming. Imagine a scenario where a small instrument is attached to your hand, long instrument, and the instrument tip is behaving exactly like your brain commands. Then we don't need this sort of machine, big machine. It is already in the research. It is going to come. The future, that's what I was telling, these large machines are going to disappear. Finally, what is going to come is there will be instruments which are going to behave exactly the way your brain gives commands and your finger. It's already there in the animation movies and all that. Non-surgical application, it's already there. It's already a research and developed product. So this motorized laparoscopy or smart laparoscopy probably is, you can call it as a robotic thing. Again, I'm telling it's all artificial intelligence. It is going to replace this bigger machine. You are not going to see this bigger machine probably in another 15 years or 20 years. It is going to be replaced with the small instruments which can go inside the human body and which can give you the 36 degrees of freedom. That is going to be the future. So you call it laparoscopic surgery, fine. You call it robotic surgery, fine. But this is what is going to happen in the near future.
Thank you very much for that very nice explanation and answer. And more than the talk was wonderful, but more than the talk, I think we all really enjoyed the interactions with you and sharing your thoughts and experiences on the subject. It was wonderful listening to you, sir. And
Thank you.
with that, we will thank you for participating on behalf of the Scientific Society of AVMC and sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. So I have a few announcements for the participants. So you're seeing a lot of thank you and appreciations in the chat box and the emojis. Okay, and one more thing is we would like to tell all the participants that the participation certificate for the session will be, the link for downloading the certificate will be mailed to you. So you can actually click the link and download the certificate. That is one. And YouTube video of this lecture will also be available and the link will be shared with you. So it's already in the chat box. So you can see the link and you can again watch this enjoyable lecture once more if you want. And I request all the students and the participants to visit our AVMC Puducherry YouTube channel. So we have the recordings of all the 50 lectures which have taken place so far. This is the 51st lecture. So you can actually watch whatever has caught your interest, what you want to watch again. That is that. And with this, we will close. There's going to be another interesting talk next week that is going to be about newer thermal imaging and how it can help in the diagnosis of cancer. So we have Dr. Kallur Kumar. He's based in Bangalore and he will be delivering this particular lecture next week. So with that, we'll close today's meeting. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you all stay safe and practice wearing mask, social distancing and hand washing so that we'll all be safe for the next meeting. Thank you. Bye-bye.